Today, thousands of people gathered on the streets of Minnesota in one of the most significant public demonstrations the state has seen in recent months. What began as a peaceful march quickly became a powerful statement, a collective voice rising from communities who say they are tired of living in fear, uncertainty, and silence. This protest is not just about a single policy or a single day. It is about identity, belonging, law enforcement, immigration, and the growing tension between federal authority and local communities. To understand what happened today, we must look beyond the chants and the crowds and ask a deeper question: why now? For many protesters, today was not spontaneous. It was the result of weeks of anxiety, rumors, confirmed enforcement actions, and a feeling that something fundamental had shifted in their daily lives. Parents worried about sending their children to school. Workers feared going to their jobs. Business owners noticed empty streets where there were once crowds. And today, those fears spilled into the open. The march moved through well-known neighborhoods, areas long shaped by immigrant labor, culture, and entrepreneurship. People walked shoulder to shoulder, holding signs calling for dignity, fairness, and an end to what they described as aggressive enforcement tactics. The mood was serious, emotional, but largely peaceful. What united the crowd was not political party or ideology, but a shared sense of vulnerability. At the center of the protest is opposition to increased federal immigration enforcement activity in Minnesota. Protesters argue that recent operations have gone beyond targeting dangerous individuals and instead created widespread fear among law-abiding residents. Many say the enforcement actions feel indiscriminate, unpredictable, and disruptive to entire neighborhoods. Supporters of the protest say families are being torn apart. They say people who have lived in the community for years are suddenly afraid to leave their homes. They argue that trust between law enforcement and residents has been damaged perhaps for a generation. From the federal government's perspective, officials insist they are enforcing existing laws. They argue that immigration enforcement is necessary for national security and public safety. They say their operations are lawful, targeted, and justified. This clash between enforcement and community impact lies at the heart of today's protest. Minnesota is home to one of the largest immigrant populations in the region, including significant Somali, Latino, and East African communities. These communities are deeply woven into the state's economy, healthcare system, transportation sector, and small business landscape. For many residents, immigration is not an abstract political issue. It is personal. It affects their neighbors, coworkers, classmates, and family members. Protesters today spoke of fear becoming normalized. They described people memorizing phone numbers in case of detention, parents preparing children for worst-case scenarios, workers avoiding public transportation, communities changing their behavior overnight. And while today's march was peaceful, the emotions behind it were intense. Some participants expressed anger, others expressed sorrow, many expressed exhaustion. This is not the first time Minnesota has seen protests around immigration, but today's turnout suggests a growing sense of urgency. Organizers say people are no longer willing to remain quiet or wait for policy debates that never seem to translate into real relief. They believe visibility matters, they believe silence enables harm, and they believe public pressure is one of the few tools they have left. At the same time, not everyone in Minnesota agrees with the protest. Some residents argue that enforcing immigration law is necessary and overdue. They say federal agencies are doing their jobs and that local opposition undermines the rule of law. Others worry about public safety, arguing that large demonstrations can escalate or disrupt daily life. They question whether protests lead to meaningful change or simply deepen division. These opposing views reflect a broader national divide, one that has grown sharper over the past decade. What makes today different is the scale, the timing, and the tone. Unlike spontaneous demonstrations driven by viral moments, today's protest felt organized, deliberate, and sustained. Participants came prepared. Messages were coordinated. Community leaders spoke with clarity and purpose. There was also a strong emphasis on unity. Protesters repeatedly emphasized that their goal was not chaos, but visibility, not violence, but recognition, not conflict, but accountability. Throughout the day, speakers reminded the crowd that immigration issues do not exist in isolation. They are connected to housing, wages, healthcare, education, and racial equity. They argued that fear destabilizes entire communities, not just individuals. For business owners in immigrant neighborhoods, the impact is already being felt. Reduced foot traffic, staffing shortages, declining sales, entire commercial areas slowing down. For schools, teachers report children showing signs of stress and distraction. Some parents hesitate to attend school meetings or events. Trust erodes quietly, long before it becomes visible. For healthcare providers, patients delay care out of fear. Preventive visits are skipped. Conditions worsen. These are not statistics. They are daily realities. As the protests continued, law enforcement maintained a visible but restrained presence. There were no major clashes reported during the march, and organizers repeatedly urged participants to remain calm and disciplined. That restraint may have prevented escalation, but the underlying tension remains. What happens next is uncertain. Organizers say today is only the beginning. They hint at additional marches, legal challenges, and sustained pressure campaigns. They want policy changes, oversight, and accountability. Federal authorities have not indicated any immediate change in strategy. They maintain that enforcement will continue. Local leaders are caught in the middle, balancing public concern, federal authority, and community trust. And so Minnesota finds itself at a crossroads. Today's protest was not just about immigration enforcement, it was about visibility, about fear becoming public, about communities saying, "We are here and we matter." Whether that message leads to change remains to be seen. But what is clear is this: the silence has been broken. As night falls, the streets may quiet, but the conversation will not. This issue will continue to shape politics, policy, and daily life in Minnesota and beyond. The people who marched today are not disappearing. Neither are the questions they raised. And in the days ahead, those questions will demand answers.